In terms of the geological and earth processes that have contributed to the resilience and the persistence of these ecosystems, Australia was once part of Gondwana land until it started breaking apart 100 something or other million years ago. About 90 to 95 million years ago on the eastern seaboard of Australia. So Australia was at that time completely covered in rainforest, in these ancient rainforests. And at that point in time, New Zealand rifted off, resulting in the lifting of the Great Dividing Range on our continental margin. What that meant was that because it was close to the ocean, the orographic, the oceanic weather patterns meant that it was permanently wet, which meant that these ancient rainforests had the physical conditions that they needed to persist through tens of millions of years of time during which Australia split off from South America and particularly Antarctica. When Australia split from Antarctica, as it drifted northwards and Antarctica drifted southwards, the circumpolar current established, and it was like a polar vortex, which meant that Australia became much, much, much drier, and areas that were always rainforest dried out and became savanna or desert or eucalypt forest and woodland. And it was really only in the mountains on the eastern seaboard that the conditions were wet enough and conducive to supporting the persistence of this ancient biodiversity, frogs and birds and plants that require permanently wet conditions. A lot more recently in the geological past, so around about 20 million years ago, the Ebor volcano, which is it has its core about 15 to 20 kilometres to our west, popped up through the crust of Australia and established a massive mountain, a massive volcanic mountain. It meant further that the area was wet and was able to be a refuge for the persistence of these ancient species. And that was where a hotspot of the Australian continent, moving northwards at 7 or 8 centimetres a year, moved over a hotspot. And the next volcano north is Wollumban in the Tweed Valley. And in the Ebor volcano and the Tweed volcano are amongst the most ancient forests on the planet, particularly on the mountain tops where it's cool and wet. And species like sphagnum frogs and pouch frogs and the rufous scrub bird, as well as just the very ecosystems that are there, they've persisted through the types of global cataclysms that we can't even fathom. Asteroid strikes 50 million years ago, desertification, the types of events that we literally can't even fathom. So what we're in the middle of is one of nature's richest and most ancient expressions, and because of modern humanity's impacts upon the planet, there's a great risk to the persistence of these forests. So the only analogues, the only close comparisons to these forests are in the mountains of the wet tropics in far north Queensland, in the mountains of Papua New Guinea, and on top of the Andes Mountains in South America. So these are islands of the most ancient forests on the planet, and we're right in the middle of that. And industrial logging is absolutely incompatible with the maintenance of those values, and that's why we're out here in the forest.